Hi, Gareth. To what extent do you need to intervene to keep a wildflower meadow going? I hear you saying there are different, some were drought tolerant, some weren't.
Yeah.
Do you have to go in and do something, or does it, what does it take to manage it?
Yes, because of their size, no irrigation is possible. We never water them, they're really on their own. What they do get is they get what's called a cut and collect mid-September. It's going to actually happen, I think it happened today, because Lambeth were late with the machinery. They get cut back once a year to a 4-inch height, and you remove all the excess foliage because you don't want it going back into the soil because it will raise the fertility, and you need low fertility soils for wildflower meadows to thrive. A lot of people try and grow wildflower meadows at home. They get their compost, from Neil's nursery, and they sow the seeds, and then it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is that they want really low fertility, and they want to be in full sun and really baked. So they are tricky, actually. They are tricky. Did that answer your question?
Kind of.
Yeah, but no other. I'll occasionally go in and resow areas if they look particularly thin.
Yeah, I'm just wondering when you have to go back in there and go, right, so this plant hasn't done very well, we need to try something else, or... No,
I see where you're coming from. No, we just let them go. I mean, it's a bit frustrating, they take a while to establish. The public have no patience, and you get judged from day one onwards. We've had people screaming at us when we've been making them. What are you doing? Digging up the common. And they take 3 to 5 years to really get there, but it's a slow motion world, the plant world, and you've just got to bear with it. So.
Thank you.
Okay, Jean, and then talk
Gareth, you still have to put yellow nettle down. Is that one of the first things that you do when you do market?
Yellow rattle?
Yeah.
Yes, I sowed about 1/4 kilogram last autumn, which is enormous, and it was very expensive. And it's a semi-parasitic plant that will decrease the vigour of grasses around the meadow so they don't get invaded. Very pretty flower on it as well. So, so we do use yellow rattle. We're trying to get it to self-propel and self-generate, but it's quite difficult. If you look at YouTube videos on yellow rattle, you've got a guy who's 110 years saying that you've got to sow it at midnight on the 6th of August, and otherwise it will all fail. And then you've got other people with their own versions of how to make it work. So it's not easy, and seed does have to be fresh to make it work. But we have got yellow rattle on the common. It springs up a whole year after the year we planted it, we sowed it. So it is a bit bonkers.
Thank you very much. Really interesting, really encouraging to see what can be done in a very dense urban area, in a green space. I wonder, you referred to Isabella Tree's book Wilding, and I wondered whether you're hoping to get to a point where you don't need to intervene and actually plant things yourself, where it will be just self-regenerating, because obviously they just left that place of 2,000 acres alone for 20 years, and just allowed whatever to happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, you haven't done that in this situation.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a bit, perhaps?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one of the most inspiring reads I've ever had. But, we don't have 3,000 acres. We don't have the megafauna that can come in, the Tamworth pigs and the ponies and the deer. You get joggers in Nike trainers, but they're not quite the same thing. So we don't have the right situation on the common, and so we do have to make interventions to get things to work. And we've got some really big problems on the common. We've got big alien invasive species problems in the woods. We've got false acacia. It's a North American semi-hardwood tree. There's suckers everywhere, and particularly if you cut it. And in Battersea Wood, you can trace it back to the mothership, where Lambeth came in and cut the top off this enormous robinia, this false acacia, And then you have these, it's like the Sorcerer's Apprentice, every time you try and cut down a sucker, it just multiplies again and again. So we're looking to see if we can get a grant to try and help work, sort out what to do with that. But I mean, it would be great if we could get, if we did just leave those woods alone, you would end up with a monoculture of false acacia that would eventually cover the whole common. It is very fast growing, it crowns over our native shrubs and trees, depriving them of light so they don't flower or fruit. It's good for nectar, and it's actually quite drought resistant, false acacia, but so with Clapham Common we can't take our hands off completely, but we can in certain areas, and we have done that.
Question.
Just to thank you, because I have absolutely loved seeing what's happened, and it's literally brought joy to my heart when I cycled through it. So just thank you so much, because it's so sterile. And I'm just wondering, do you think this is going to inspire other commons, like Wandsworth Common, Wimbledon? Do you think is this going to spread?
I mean, Wandsworth Common's doing much better than Clapham Common anyway. Enable are a better management team, and the Friends of Clapham Common Wandsworth Common are brilliant. They work really, really hard, Richard and Julia. I think there are some things that could do a bit better on Wandsworth Common. I think the wetland needs more light. I think that there could be more variety of plant species. It's a bit neat and trim, but it's not doing badly. I think the smaller parks, things like Agnes Riley and moving across and up into London, I think it's a model that could work for other parks really well. But it's trying to get your friends group to sort out the WhatsApp group, to manage the watering volunteers, and the people who have got the commitment. I mean, I said to Paula, who reminded me of my saying this, I describe myself as a gladiator sometimes, because my God, you have to be, really resilient and really determined to get these things through. You can so easily fall at the first hurdle. So it's not easy, but it's hugely rewarding.
Just a question over here first, and then over there, three.
Hi, thank you so much. It's absolutely amazing. This is a bit naughty of me, but I hijacked in your meeting to let you know we have a problem in Southfields. There's a private tennis club near where I live. There's a few hundred members and lots of money, and they've just been granted planning permission by the GLA to cut down 800 trees.
800?
Sorry to bring the mood down. On protected capability land, which is held in public trust, in preparation for 37 tennis courts and an 8,000-seater stadium.
So Wimbledon.
Yes. The stadium is going to be bigger than the Albert Hall, and this is in spite of the covenant to prevent development. The covenant to prevent development. So please, can you come and help us and save Wimbledon Park? And can all of you have a look on Save Wimbledon Park website? I've been working with them for 3 years, and there's a huge amount of knowledge, legal and biological and ecological. Do you happen to know David Dawson?
Very happy to. Why don't we have a more detailed chat after this?
I just wanted to sort of hijack the meeting.
I was surprised actually that the decision went that way. I didn't think it would. I thought it would go the other way.
I think we have a very strong legal team, but somehow or other they found a way through. But still the covenant, which is separate to planning rules.
Yeah.
And I think, a bit like you were saying earlier, we're keeping it a bit under our hat. I don't suppose there's any LTC spies here, because the legal team are working hard on that at the moment. But if you go on, say, Wimbledon Park, there's a massive amount of information, a lot of it from Dr. David Dawson, which is really worth reading. He's an environmental scientist. And he's been studying the park for 30 years, all its bats and insects and things.
Thank you.
Let's talk afterwards.
Yes.
We'll catch up with you.
We've got 3 questions over there. I think Sarah, and then find 2 more.
Hi. Actually, I had a conversation when you were on the Common one time in the summer, and you were all excited about the idea of a corridor coming from Clapham to Wandsworth Common.
gardens.
Yes,
And people having the opportunity to plant on their private
yes.
front garden areas or whatever. Can you tell us a little bit more about whether that's actually going to happen?
Yes, we've been meeting with the Friends of Wandsworth Common and with Beautify Balham to try to work out the best way to move forward with this. But it's definitely in our plan is to try to make a connection through the streets, through the front gardens and through the back gardens from private residents, private domestic gardens who will make a few adjustments in their own space to provide a stepstone as our wildlife tries to move through. It got put on a hold a little bit because we all had a very, very busy summer. But I think we're just about to start meeting up again to see how to move it forward. We're looking at whether it's a leaflet campaign, whether it needs to be a website. So we're trying to just talk about the best format and the best ways in which to present it. So.
And presumably use Nextdoor and networks like that so that people
I'm sure it will,
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's still in development stage, but it is very much the plan.
Right.
Isn't it?
Okay, a question over there and then...
Thank you so much. I don't live around here, but I look forward to coming in daylight and seeing all the work that you've done. It's a bit of a specific question. I wonder if you could just tell a bit more information about that initial meeting and how you managed to negotiate that triangle. Whether, I know you identified it as a section of land that wasn't going to interfere with, sort of commercial activities. But how did that first conversation look like? Were they quite willing? Did you have to come with this proposal?
No, I did have to. Yeah, I had to do a full design of it on a computer, present it at CC Mac's management meeting, to Lambeth Parks, to Lambeth senior management, to the trees team. We had something on our site. We have Kevin Crook is the assistant director of neighbourhoods and street scene, and in 2021 the Environment Act has put all councils under a huge amount of pressure to engage the public with nature more, and this project coincided with that move. And so Kevin, who's top level, he turned up to one of our very small, low-level meetings. He suddenly appeared and said, I want you to pursue this, I want you to go through with this. We did have some resistance. This area was typically called the dog walkers area, and before it's called the scrublands now. And we did have some complaints, people saying, oh, the dog walkers, they're not going to like it, you're going to be in trouble. The dog walkers love it. The dogs go round and round and it's more interesting. And we had some disagreement within the Friends. Some of my colleagues were not sure that I'd found the right space, but I felt that it really was. So I pushed it and got it through. So it's quite frightening, really. It's quite scary. You're working on public land. You're very open to being judged, and you are judged, and people will tell you what they think. But it was also quite thrilling, and I think I just read Wilding, so it was like, no, I've got to do this. We have to do this. I was sort of walking around with a book under my arm, going, read this. So it was good. It was a good platform to start from. It was a good springboard. So,
And thank you so much. That was a really inspiring talk. My question was half been answered, so I'll reflavour it slightly, which is you've talked about some of the partnerships and that you've got with other organisations, with charities and funds and so on. How important have you found it to partner with other organisations that bring different expertise and different perspectives, and are you still looking to kind of do that more? I was thinking about when you were talking about the plant health aspect, the tree diseases and so on. Do you work with like observatory and things like things like that.
Yeah.
Monitoring.
Very in favour of always bringing more experts onto our advisory committee, and I think it's really healthy and really useful to work in partnerships. Funders like to see partnership projects, so it's good for attracting funding, which isn't the main reason. The main reason is, you want their expertise to come into the project and to adjust things and to, give you feedback and to say, no, don't do it like that, Gareth. Do it like this. So, no, very valuable. And the Lambeth Biodiversity Forum has been very useful for that, because you get to sit around a massive table with, some of my heroes. People who I've been reading their articles for years, and it's like sitting next to you. So it's great. So we're going to keep trying to pull more people in. But you've got to be careful you don't overweigh things as well. I know a number of organisations that can't move because you can't please everybody. So I'm quite in favour of finding the best and keeping it slim and efficient, so that it all works. But no, always keen to bring in more experts. And Lambeth wants to see that as well as other funders. So.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has a question, but I've got one I'd like to ask you about using the front gardens and back gardens, private gardens, for corridors, which is something we've been talking around in Excel Wandsworth, a few of us. And the question I had is, are the local authorities on board with this, and what role are they playing? If they're not, would it be useful to have them on board? And could they play a role, like if you need to leaflet and talk to householders about what they could do? What role could local authorities play?
Yes. Well, Judy Gasser, who's a cabinet member for Wandsworth, has already shown some interest in this project, and Lambeth have quietly said to me that they are interested as well. I mean, one of the things I find very frustrating is that local authorities tend to stick to their green spaces and don't, they are literally the local authority. That is their title, and it's their job, their role is to bring everybody into this journey and to move together. So we're definitely pressing them to do so. And I think there is interest. I mean, particularly the way things are going, the direction of travel now is so dire that you don't really have a choice. It's like, deal with it, do your job, get on with it, and help people to make the changes we need for a healthy, happy, biodiverse world. So definitely pressuring them, and both Lambeth and Wandsworth have shown some interest. Lambeth have agreed to put in information. I brought this up at the last Biodiversity Forum. They've agreed that their biodiversity action plan is about to expire. It ran from 2021 to 2024, and the new one, they've agreed that they will put in information for the public. Which is great, but it's like, who sits there thinking, oh, the new biodiversity action plan's out, I must get a copy and read it cover to cover. It's a good move, and it's very welcome, but we need to make it very much more easy and much more accessible. I'm thinking more of adverts on bus stops, with QR codes where the big green up, something, not quite so corny as that, but, we need to be very clever psychologically, because it's very hard to get the public on board. We were talking before the meeting about everybody is so distracted and believes they have no time, and to get people to engage with this is, people think it's overly complicated and they can't do it, but they can.
Okay, thank you.
They're helpful.
So one here, and then there. I think we've got another 5 minutes or so. Pat and
It was just following up on that point about how we can, how we can use gardens, back gardens, front gardens, and so on. And I mean, one of the things that I get very concerned about is the increase in, plastic grass in gardens and so on. And that seems to be, well, I think it is, statistically it's on the increase, and I think now something like 10% of gardens have plastic grass over them. So I can't quite remember what the statistics were that you were talking about in terms of, the percentage of gardens that isn't
that aren't paved over?
14. 14%.
14%.
Yeah. Of the whole of space of Greater London is still vegetated back garden and front garden.
But
growing
presumably
space.
that's shrinking as more and more plastic grass is installed.
Yes, it is.
Which I've seen, happening on my own street. Is there a kind of legislative, because I did hear that, wasn't it in Wales, they tried to kind of make it illegal or through some bylaws or whatever?
But in my view, it should be illegal. It should
so
come
is
with...
it something we could be pressing for? I mean,
We
does
are.
it have to be a national thing?
No, we
Or
are
be a
pressing
local
for
bylaw?
I work with the Truth About Plastic on this, and we're particularly targeting 3G pitches at the moment that come with rubber crumb inside them, which has just been banned now in Europe as an intentionally added microplastic. This government over here doesn't want to, neither Conservative or Labour want to stick their neck out and say, oi, stop it. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry globally. None of it's recyclable because it's all mixed polymer. And it's a farce, the whole recycling thing with plastics anyway. So it is a really big problem. And I mean, we think that it probably in time will be banned. I think it is actually decreasing in use. But for reasons like it now is known to decrease the value of your house. So people are saying, okay, well maybe not then. It's nothing to do with wildlife or,
I did try that with my neighbours, but it didn't work.
we don't fit it, we refuse to fit it, and I do my very best to talk people out of fitting it, but we won't work for them if they want it. It's a no-no, it's a red line.
I'm just curious about what the pressure points are, because, if you had to apply for planning permission in order to put plastic grass down in your garden, it might make people think twice about it.
But I mean, there's other complications with it, like it's covered in PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyls are used as lubricants to extrude the grass blades. So although it's not part of the ingredients, when your new lawn is fitted, it's covered in forever chemicals, which your kids, are rubbing all over themselves, So, I mean, in my view, it should be illegal, but, we've managed to stop it being fitted on the common, but I can't get into... I've signed so many petitions to try and make it so. They get to about 40,000 and then they fall off. We haven't got to the point where everybody jumps on it together at the same time, and says, stop it.
Sorry to interject with the book that I was mentioning to Jean about gardens. She says this one here, if you want sources for good information, it's getting too hot. So that will go in our favour of not having them, is that children are burning themselves.
I think we all
And pets,
we all
feet
know
of
how
dogs.
terrible it is.
Dogs and children are getting burnt. Not that that's what we want, but it will help the process.
Okay, so I've got two more questions, and then, three more questions, and then we're going to stop. So 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Adding to the points about front gardens and plastic grass and so on. Where I live over in Putney, there's a lot of people are paving over their front gardens, just obliterating anything, and maybe putting in a few very, predictable sort of boring shrubs that probably aren't pollinator plants at all. And the council doesn't seem to have any powers to stop this happening because it's on people's private land. How can council? I mean, this is an area where council should be trying to tell people, don't do this. It's preferable not to do this, trying to persuade them not to do this because of biodiversity benefits of not doing it. But they want the convenience of being able to park their four-wheel drive and then running a lovely paved white area that's going to heat up like crazy.
Yes.
What do we do about that? How can we tackle that?
That's a good question, a very difficult question to answer. I mean, planning will allow people to do what they want with their own plot, which includes digging basements underneath their own houses, paving over the areas at the front and the back, fitting plastic grass. The council, we live in a fairly liberal democracy, and the council's not going to be authoritarian and step in. But the kind of campaign that Caroline was talking about, where you start to bring the community with you, these are points that should be included in that, you know, very clearly and really quite powerfully. I mean, I see front gardens where there is not a single plant. You know, the whole thing. You don't actually need that much space for your vehicle. You know, but they've. You know, what worries me more is that people are frightened of plants. They can't be dealing with them. They think that they are needy. You know, they have to water them, and then they're going to drop leaves everywhere, and you know the pollen is going to stain my beautiful stonework, and you know, and they've got Latin names, which is really off-putting, and you know, it's really, people are, you know, I have noticed a trend with exteriors moving much more towards resembling interiors with design. People want the insides of their houses to go on into the outside of their houses, which means they want maybe plastic grass, a 4-inch border for their olive trees, you know, and just wide open space. They're just not thinking that, you know, 10 to 20 years from now, this is all going to be irrelevant, you know, completely irrelevant. You know, these box ticks that you're striving for, you know, they're of no consequence, you know.
It'd be good, sorry, I can't help it, by saying it'd be good to campaign against dropped curbs, so that would stop them.
Yeah.
The nuisance of people like me with dodgy hips.
Yeah. It's difficult. There's powerful voices on both sides, and it's very difficult to get changes. You come immediately up against the block if you try.
I'm sure. Okay.
Thank you. Just a quick point on the plastic grass discussion. So until 4 months ago, I lived up in the West Midlands, and the house that my ex-partner and I bought had plastic grass down, and we spent some time ripping it up and replacing it with wildflower meadow. And it might be surprising to learn that one of the things I found when I arrived in London 4 months ago was how much greener it actually felt and how much more nature it felt like there was than up in the West Midlands. It's kind of much worse up there. Like I think about a third to a half of the houses that we looked around when we were buying somewhere had plastic grass, and really depressing. And I was just going to say, sort of share a reflection on what I think is a helpful argument in that question of how do you dissuade people from getting it when they aren't going to be moved by things like, oh, it's better for biodiversity. If they're people that sort of don't care about biodiversity, don't care about it. The thing that I have found works, and it's worked on some of my neighbours who I dissuaded out of it, was actually pointing out the claims of the benefits of it that are just not true. Like the fact that it's lower maintenance, and then you see people hoovering it. You see people have to go out and you know, hose it down after their dogs weed on it, whereas you don't, it's real grass, you know, and pointing out those things that are perhaps not the first arguments that jump to our mind because we care about nature, we care about biodiversity, but actually sort of thinking about what matters to them, and what matters to them is convenience and cost and perceived neatness, and actually if you can point out, well, you know what, in a couple of years it's going to look like a shed. You know? That makes it better. So that's
all really brilliant points, and I think one of the things that has boosted plastic grass is the rental market, where people don't want maintenance costs, so they want to obliterate that for their own convenience. They just, and I come up against that a lot. People feel they have no time. I don't agree with them that they have no time. It's just the way that people choose to live their lives. But there is time for everything that you really want to do. But it is sad. I think it's heartbreaking, really. You know?
My brother-in-law's got all these flowers in plastic flowers. And he's in Birmingham, but I don't think it's West. So we haven't actually replaced the grass with plastic grass on the beach.
One final question over there.
Excuse my English, not so good, I am a French activist.
No worries.
I would like to thank you and your volunteers for all the good job you do to restore biodiversity and nature. Because who saves the butterfly, saves the universe. Who saves the liver or butterfly, saves the universe too. So, are you in LinkedIn, or do you share regularly information or experiences with other people with the same thing, so precious in other towns, in England and Europe, Paris, for example? Do you share information with other people doing the same so precious job you do?
We don't specifically. We're a very small charity. We've got a website, but it's 3 pages long. We haven't. I mean, there's no time. You know, you're so busy doing the actual work.
Yeah.
But there are lots of information resources that people can access and that are shared resources. Butterfly conservation is a good one. You know. But in time, yes.
I mean, we are recording this, and it will go on our Excel Wandsworth YouTube, and anybody else would be very, very welcome and encouraged to pick it up and put it on their own sites or share it. So that is one small way we can help spread the ideas. And I think we need to stop as we're after 8:30. And thank you again for an amazing